Alright, welcome back to Mawg Games. Now in today's video, what we have for you is 3 individual videos I made on the game Nier Automata. We have spliced them all together in chronological order so you could view it all in one shot. What I had done was after every ending, ending A, ending B, and then we grouped C, D, and E as one ending. But after all 3 of those endings, we stopped, we gave our initial impressions, our raw thoughts on how the game was going, initial review of where we were in the story and where we thought the story was going, and generally how we felt about the game and its different endings. So I did one after ending A, after ending B, and then after C, D, and E. They are now spliced together. Here it is. It's about an hour and a half or so. And I haven't watched it all in one go yet, but it shouldn't be too repetitive because I pretty much stuck to things that happen in every individual section. So you should be able to watch the whole thing and the whole time be learning something new. So that's my hope. I'll find out after watching it, but that'll do it. Enjoy the video. Thanks for watching. Mawg Games is out. Peace. Alright, welcome back to Mawg Games. Today we are starting a new series on the game Nier Automata. Now, the way we're going to be doing this, if you don't know, this game has multiple endings, multiple sections. You have to beat the game 3 different times to get the actual ending of the game. So, after each playthrough and ending, we are going to stop, we're going to reflect and give our first impressions and raw thoughts on where this story is going. Now, Nier Automata supposedly is a 10 out of 10 masterpiece and one of the greatest stories in video gaming history, possibly in all of media, if you are to believe what everybody on the internet is saying about it. Now, I wasn't super familiar with the Nier franchise, alright? I'm familiar with it in the sense that I knew it was a game, and I have seen the characters, okay? I've seen, especially 2B, you see her in other media, you see people cosplay as her, so I have been exposed to Nier in that sense. But I knew nothing of the franchise, nothing of the game. It just wasn't something that normally, especially when it came out, would have piqued my interest and would have caused me to seek it out, okay? Now, I fell in love with storytelling in video games when I played Final Fantasy VII for the first time on my PlayStation 1. Ever since that day, I have sought out video games that had amazing, epic, gripping, and exciting stories. I like when a game, its story grabs you by the collar and says, "You're coming with me, we are dragging you along." And the games that are, the story's so good that you find yourself mashing through the action just trying to get to the next cutscene. Most games, you're trying to skip through the cutscenes to get back to the action because the stories are just that bland. Every now and again, we get amazing, epic, high-quality stories that just stick with you. Final Fantasy VII's storyline has stuck with me all my life. I played it when I was 15. I'm a 42-year-old man. Something like that. I don't know, does that work? I think that math works. And that's what I seek out, especially the older I get, when I'm trying to choose which game to play. I want something that is going to tell me an amazing, epic story. Or I want something super, super immersive, okay? So those are kind of like my main criteria for a game. So anything that is storytelling related, especially that is widely acclaimed, I'm going to be interested in. And everything I see about this game says it's a masterpiece, and it is one of the best stories in video gaming, and maybe even in all of media history. Ever since I have learned that Nier is one of the best stories in video gaming history, I have decided to go into it blind. Okay, I do not know much. I don't even know the base storyline going into this game. Okay, quickly you figure it out. It doesn't hide it from you. Okay, so I am going into this playthrough 100% blind, essentially. All I knew going into it when I fired it up is it's going to be a masterpiece, a 10 out of 10 game, one of the best stories I'm ever going to experience. And I knew that the ninja maid was going to kick some ass. I was going to kick some ass as a ninja maid or something like that, all right? So, that was our knowledge base going in. I have now played through what's basically the first third of the game. I have gotten through ending A. Okay, we've done all of 2B's story and got ending A. So that is currently where I am at, roughly, I can't remember off the top of my head, somewhere between like 17 and 20 hours in. How we're doing this series, like I said, we're doing this in sections after each section and each ending. So this is my raw thoughts and my first impression after ending A, after 2B's section of Nier Automata. And we're going to talk about where we're at in the story. We're going to talk about where I think it's going, how I think it's doing. Is it stacking up to the billing of a masterpiece, of a 10 out of 10 video game, of like the best story ever told in video gaming history? We're going to talk about all of that in this video. And before we go any further, I'm just going to give a general spoiler warning. Now, I am assuming if you clicked on this video, you have probably finished the game. Otherwise, there is no reason to take a look at what I think after just ending A. But for those of you who may have stumbled upon the video and not sure what it is, if you are going to play this game in the future, this is your spoiler warning. I cannot talk about this game without talking about its themes and the plot of it. So, you have been warned. Alright, before we go any further, I just want to do a brief recap of where we're at in the story right now, just so we have context, we have frame of reference. I'm not going to get too detailed in the rundown of it, because I just need us to know enough for the purposes of the rest of the discussion. So, essentially, where we are at in this story, which is the end of ending A, alright, Earth was attacked by aliens. The aliens have an army of machine life forms. When Earth was attacked, the humans escaped to the moon. From the moon, they have sent an army of androids to fight the machine life forms on Earth. Now, we start the game in the middle of a mission, okay? 2B is flying in with her squad. They get taken out. We meet up with 9S. We take down a Goliath machine life form. And continue out into the world to figure out what our next move is, okay? Now, 9S, at the beginning of the game, keeps telling us that the machines are basically, they're non-intelligent, they don't communicate, anything that they say is random, and the things that they do have no meaning, because they are just machines who are doing essentially what they're programmed to do. Alright, he truly believes that, or he has to say these things so he doesn't have to admit otherwise. And that is very apparent early on in the playthrough, because the things these machines were saying felt in context from the very beginning. And that is proven out within the first maybe hour or two of the game, okay? You know, especially by the time I think we get to the desert. Especially those, the first 4 areas of the main quest in the desert, you realize, if you hadn't figured it out yet, you realize right then and there that these machine life forms are communicating. It is complex communication. And not only is it complex communication, they're forming sentences and whatnot. They're describing feelings and emotions. Okay. So we get that kind of slapped in our face right away. Now, the machines are controlled by two entities, Adam and Eve. Okay? They each control, let's just say, one half of the machine life forms apiece. Now, Adam, bored with his existence as a machine, able to just die and reincarnate essentially over and over again, wants to experience what it would be like to actually risk something. All right, he's bored. He's bored. He wants to risk something, so he risks his life in a battle with 2B. He basically cuts himself off from the network, makes it so he can't upload his consciousness into another machine. We kill him. Okay, we kill him, and Eve goes nuts. Goes absolute bonkers and is dead set on revenge. Alright, so, long story short, we kill Eve. Alright, we wipe him out. So Eve is dead, Adam is dead. Unfortunately, Eve was able to infect 9S with a logic virus when 9S attached the machine parts to his arm at the end of the battle. So 9S is busted, he's broken, he has a virus. We have no choices 2B but to kill him. So, with tears in our eyes, we choke 9S out, and we snuff the life from him. This is essentially where our game is wrapping up. But we have the payoff, essentially, of the A ending, which is 9S had downloaded himself into a bunch of machine life forms in the area, and he was able to gather his consciousness back, but it's now trapped in a machine, or it is in a machine, okay? Which kind of shows that at the end of the day, you know, the machines and the androids weren't very different after all. And that's kind of how ending A wraps up. Now, there's a lot of symbolism and themes within this story, and that's what we're going to get into next. But that is the brief recap of where we're at, all right? Machines and androids, they're fighting. Adam and Eve are in control of the machines. We kill Adam and Eve. 9S dies, resurrects as a machine, okay? That's basically the first 20 hours of the game. Now, let's talk a little bit more specifically about some of our main characters and heavy hitters in the game here. Through this part of the playthrough, there's only really 5 characters that we need to talk about. 2B, 9S, Pascal, Adam, and Eve. Now, there's many more characters than that, and we could get into the other individual characters, but for the purposes of the discussion of ending A only, these are the 5 major players. Now, 2B is the prototypical cold, standoffish hero who begins to warm up throughout the story and then ends as, you know, a much more open and honest individual by the end. 9S is that happy-go-lucky sidekick who has difficulty facing facts, though. The fact that the machines were essentially communicating complex thoughts and emotions was smacking him in the face the entire game, and he never really picked up on it, or at least never admitted to picking up on it. Then we have Pascal. Pascal's character shows the machine life form's more human side. Begins to humanize the enemy that we've been slaughtering by the dozens for the first, several hours of the game. and shows us that there's a lot more going on than what we might first believe. Adam and Eve show the cunning and intelligent side of the machine life forms, and they are there to prove everything that we were led to believe about machine life forms wrong. Okay? They are definitely using complex communication. They are making moves independent of program, at least seemingly. Okay, so they kind of show that these lines that we had set up between machine and android, they might be a little bit more blurry than what we were first told. All right, so the main theme of ending A, and the point that I feel the developers were really trying to drive home, is that sometimes, most of the time, often, our enemies and us are more alike than what it first seems, and that we would like to readily admit. This game spent every opportunity it could to tell us that the machine life forms were lesser beings. They were simple, backwards, thoughtless, feelingless, emotionless, couldn't talk, couldn't communicate, couldn't do anything outside of the function that they were specifically programmed to do. By the end of the game, we find out that the androids and the machine life forms have a lot more in common than what we were led to believe initially. Now, this is a theme in real life, okay? And we see this throughout history. This is a common tactic in like military engagements. You other the enemy. You teach your soldiers that they are lesser, they are backwards, they are savage, they aren't even basically human. It's like you're shooting a dog, a rabid one at that. So it's justified and it's okay. So when the soldiers are out on the battlefield and they have a man in their crosshairs, they won't see that man as a man. They will see it as something lesser, something that doesn't deserve consideration, and they'll pull that trigger without hesitating, okay? It's necessary to a certain extent because you can't have a bunch of people half-stepping and hesitating on the battlefield. That costs your side lives. So this was a common theme, and this is what the androids have essentially done. They have othered the machine life forms from the top down. So the management and maybe it's the humans on the moon have used the same tactics that they always have to teach the androids that the machine life forms are lesser beings. They don't think, they don't feel. It's okay to kill them because all you're doing is destroying something. You're not actually killing a person, a soul, a sentient being whatsoever. We come to find out, though, and the player figures it out well before the characters of our game figure it out. Yeah, that isn't necessarily the case. These are thinking, feeling, emotional beings. Maybe they didn't start that way, but that's what they are. And you know, maybe they're not all the way there. Maybe they're not perfect. Maybe they misunderstand human concepts that are kind of more abstract and trickier to grasp without having lived experiences. But there is something more than just programming going on there. And that point is just driven home when 9S's consciousness was able to be downloaded into a machine. Okay, because if the machine can handle and accept a consciousness, and it has the circuitry and the ability to do that, it has to be doing that for the machines as well. You know, or that infrastructure wouldn't be there. Okay, we've done a recap of the events leading up until ending A. We talked about the main characters or the important characters of this first 20 hours. We've talked about the main theme of this section of the story. Now, considering this is 1/3 of the story, it is not fair for me to judge this in any way, shape, or form. I realize that. I know. All right, so I am going to talk about this in definitive terms, but just know that I know there's a lot more story to go and that this is just the beginning. But with that said, we have a full story already. We got a beginning, a middle, and an ending. We got a very satisfying ending. We had a complete story tied up with a pretty pink bow on it after this first 20 hours. So we can talk about this as if it's the entire story, even though I know it's not. Okay, so you don't have to put that in the comments. I know there's a lot more to go, but this is where we're at right now. And this is how I'm feeling about this right now. First off, I want to start by saying this is a good story. Okay, this is a solid story. This is a good game. This is a fun game. I am enjoying what I am playing so far, okay? It has not felt overly grindy. There's been some spots I did not care for or you know, felt like a bit of a grind to get through, but those were kind of few and far between. I mean, every game's going to have those spots. This one had them. But overall, if this was a full game, this was the 20-hour full experience of the game, this is a good game. This is a solid game, okay? It's not a memorable game. And it hasn't been a memorable story up until this point. Don't kill me. Like I said, I know we are a far way. We have 1/3 of the picture right now. But right now, if this was it, this was good. It was solid. It was a good experience. I would have felt like I got my money's worth. But this wouldn't be a game I would come back to or remember 5, 10, 15 years from now. This story has been told. This story has been told thousands of times throughout media, throughout movies, games. This story is common. Okay, they tell it well. There's nothing wrong with the way they are telling this story. It's just all common tropes, even the characters, okay? 2B. We've seen 2B a million different times and a million different characters in a million different books, games, stories, movies, what have you. There is nothing unique about this first 20 hours. As far as the story is concerned, and technically as far as the gameplay is concerned, honestly. The gameplay is fun. I enjoy it.
We've got enemies approaching.
I like that it goes from like top down, side scroller, all that. But this video isn't necessarily about the game. It's about the story. But the gameplay is solid. It's good. I like the gameplay. It makes it easy to grind through until the next cutscene. So I like that the graphics, they look, you know, even though it's an older game now, the graphics still hold up. They look solid enough. You know, it doesn't blow you away. Maybe it did back in the day. Nowadays it wouldn't blow you away, but it wouldn't make you turn it off either. The characters look great. The background textures are a little iffy. But other than that, you know, I have no problem with the graphics and how this game is aged. Story-wise, though, it's a story that has been told before. They told the story. They told it well. They told it in a solid manner. Have no problem with how they told it. It doesn't impress me, though, when this is something I've heard, like I said, 1,000 different times in 1,000 different pieces of media. How they get this story after 20 hours when, from what I can tell, there's 10 to 15 hours left of gameplay, maybe. In less than one half of the game, how are they going to turn this story into one of the greatest of all time and an absolute masterpiece? Okay? I don't know how we get there. I'm sure they will. I'm sure they will. But while this story has been solid and it's been good, you know how I said, like, I've played games before where I just want to mash through the action to get to the next cutscene? Um, this hasn't really, like, grabbed a hold of me and, like, really, like, drugged me through the ride. I'm actively searching out the next cutscene and the next bit of plot. So I, in that way, I am mashing through stuff, but currently, right now, it doesn't feel like I'm on for the ride. Okay, like I'm on the ride, right? But it's not like my palms aren't sweaty. I'm not like crazy excited and looking forward to the next piece. Will that change? I'm assuming yes. I'm assuming yes. Like I said, there's nothing wrong with the story, and I don't want this to feel like it's negative because it's not. I am judging this on the basis of this was a masterpiece, though. Like I said, it's not fair, absolutely not fair of me to judge this 1/3 of the way in. I'm doing this now, though, so we could see how my opinion changes every time I get a different ending, right? I think it's like a cool little experiment to do to see how maybe my love for this game evolves over time. I'm hoping by the end of this I am like drop dead on the floor in love with this game. Right now, though, like I said, it's not super memorable. It's not super unique. It's not anything. It's something that I would enjoy for the time that I was enjoying it, but would never necessarily go back to. But that's kind of where we're at right now, where I feel like we have a far way to go to become a masterpiece from this point. And how do you develop that, feed it to the player in the form of story, and then wrap it all up when you spent so much time on such a mundane story? Story A is mundane. It's been done before. It's been done over and over and over. Like I said, they did it well. They did it well, and I liked it. And I had a smile on my face when 9S was in that machine, and 2B, it kind of the realization hit her. It was a good moment. It was a damn good moment. But yeah, it wasn't like. So far, this isn't anything crazy, guys. This is not anything crazy. Will it get that way? I am sure. I am hoping. Because that's what I signed up for, and I really want to get that. So hopefully we'll get there. We'll have to see, though, as I progress further and get more of these endings. And the odd thing about this story, how this game is set up, and this is kind of just a side note, okay? Now, obviously, going into this, I knew that the first ending, the first time the game ends, that's not the ending. There is more to this story. I obviously know that I have to do 2B, I have to do 9S, and then there's a third part after that you have to do before you get the real ending of the game. But if I didn't know this, if I just was hyped for Nier Automata, let's just say I liked the artwork, or I'm really into French maids with swords, and I saw this game and I'm knowing nothing else, I bought it. And I brought it home day one it was released, and I played the shit out of it for 20 straight hours, and I beat it. Okay, and I got the ending. Like I said, this ending, this story for ending A, is a beginning, a middle, and end, and it's wrapped up in a nice, pretty pink bow. To me, at that point, it was concluded. It was it. I could have turned that game off not knowing that there's more gameplay and walked away from it and not knowing that I only got the first third of the story. It's just such an odd choice and an odd way to structure a game. Especially in such a competitive market nowadays. And maybe that's the unique thing that makes this stand out, and maybe that's why it's revered the way it is. But a good story is a good story, and it doesn't need gimmicks. So it's just a very odd choice by the developers, especially the way if they would have ended this on a cliffhanger. Okay, that makes sense. Like you'd be like searching, like, oh man, like what's next? Um, and you know that would have led you to kind of figure out that there's more parts. But like to get that kind of satisfying, simple yet satisfying ending that we got in ending A, all loose ends connected essentially. Okay. Um, it would have been so easy to put that game back on the shelf and moved on to the next one, not even knowing that you're only 33% of the way through. Just insane. Just absolutely insane. You know, so in conclusion, overall, this is a good game. All right, this is a fun game. This game is worth the price tag of admission, okay? It plays nicely. The graphics, still to this day, mostly hold up. The story's solid and satisfying. If you consider ending A just it's done. It is a complete story. It has a satisfying end where it wraps everything up in a nice, pretty little bow and sends us on our way. It isn't a memorable story yet, and it is a memorable game. It's just good. It's a good game, a good story. If I didn't know there was more, there would be nothing keeping me here right now, though. How do they make this the best story ever? How do they take what we have here and turn this into a masterpiece? This is a 6.5, 7 out of 10 story right now. How do you take that and elevate it to a 10? I'm excited to find out. Because it has to, right? It has to. It wouldn't be considered one of the best storytelling games in all of video game history if it didn't. So I'm jazzed up and I'm pumped up to find out how they pull this off. So, with all that said, where do I think they're taking this story? How would I take what we have here and turn it into the best story of all time? Well, first of all, we have seen machines essentially birth an android. I'm sorry, Adam and Eve are just as much Android as 2B and 9S. And that came from the impromptu womb of a mass of machine life forms. So my guess is somehow the machines have created the androids. All right, the androids come from the machines, and we are going to find out at the end of all this that they have just been killing what is essentially themselves. They have been killing versions of themselves. All right, the androids are essentially committing patricide. Okay, they are killing their mother and fathers. They are slaughtering their creators essentially. The same way we already know that the machine life forms have killed off their creators. They have killed off the alien race, according to Adam and Eve. So, and we've seen, the dead aliens, what have you. So that's kind of how I think they're going to twist this mundane, run-of-the-mill, everyday story of two opposing groups finding out that they have a lot in common into that next level that's going to twist it and make it really a very profound experience worthy of being considered a masterpiece. But with that, we're just going to have to wait and see. I mean, that's my best guess at this point. Maybe I'm right, maybe I'm wrong. We're going to play Ending B, I think is what comes next. And see kind of where we're at after that. So maybe in a couple of weeks, we're going to get, once I take care of it, once I beat it, we're going to take Ending B and do the same thing, okay? And we're going to incorporate everything we know about the story at the time of Ending B and reevaluate where we're at as far as, are we getting nearer to a masterpiece, or is this a run-of-the-mill good, solid story. Which right now, like I said, good, solid story. Will it be a masterpiece? We'll find out soon. But that'll do it. Mawg Games is out. Peace. Alright, welcome back to Mawg Games. Now, in today's video, we are going to be going over Ending B of Nier Automata. Now, how we're doing this series is after each individual ending, I am stopping, reflecting, and giving my raw thoughts on where we're at in the story, how it's stacking up as one of the supposed best storylines in video gaming history, and what my general overall feelings and thoughts on the game at this moment in time are. Now, we already did this for Ending A, and we treated Ending A like it was a full story. Ending A took 20 hours, so that's an appropriate length for a fully fledged video game storyline. Ending A had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and therefore we were able to treat Ending A like its own complete separate entity. Like Ending A was all the story there was in the game. Ending B does not work the same way, okay? Ending B is not a full story. We get a bunch of partial stories, and we're left kind of hanging before the climax of any of them. So this review of Ending B is going to be a little bit different than how I did Ending A, because in good conscience, I cannot treat Ending B as a full, fleshed out story. Although we basically have Ending A and all its storyline wrapped up into Ending B, the main differences in what makes Ending B are all incomplete. Okay, they are incomplete stories, they're incomplete threads, they're incomplete thoughts. All right. Now, in Ending B, we get a bunch of additional context and story elements that we did not receive in Ending A. The one thing that we get right off the bat that's very different than Ending A is the storyboard cutscenes that we were getting of the machines. Okay, and we'll go into that a little later. Also, you have the Forest Kingdom. You get a lot of extra background there. You get a lot of extra background about the amusement park and the things that happen there. 9S ends up inside both the machine and android networks and kind of learns things in both of them. Near the very end of Ending B, we get the big bombshell, and we are going to go into that. We're going to go into all this in a bit more detail. But first, let's take a look at the cutscenes and what we learn there. All right. Now, the cutscenes are essentially showing some sort of entity teaching the machines and giving them gifts, okay? And the gifts, they portray it on the storyboard as shapes. A heart, a square, a star, whatever. So these gifts are like, I think treasures is what they called them. Really represent like emotions and parts of humanity. So he is giving each machine an emotion, a feeling, a concept, something that was a part of humanity that they can take and kind of hold on to. So he teaches each section certain parts of humanity. At least that's kind of what I gathered from those storyboards. And this was kind of a higher figure, okay? Something that, it's not clear whether it was machine or not or something else, but some sort of higher entity was teaching pieces of humanity to the machines. Okay. Next, let's get into the Forest Kingdom. They had a benevolent leader who wanted to live in peace as a family, essentially. All right. So he wanted to start a kingdom in the forest. The other machines didn't know what a kingdom was, so he taught them. He gave them roles in the kingdom, taught them their role, and he led a peaceful existence. They existed in this castle in the forest peacefully. And unfortunately, after a time, the king died. All right. When he died, the kingdom kind of was at a loss for what to do. So, being unsure of what to do and where to go from here, they decided the best course of action was to take essentially what is the king's mind and put it into a baby machine. And this baby was going to grow to be their future king. Now, unfortunately, it's shown that the baby machine, since it is a machine, it can't grow. So 100 and some odd years later, like almost 200 years later, the baby is still a baby. So they're waiting for this king to grow up and to lead them again. Meanwhile, they're really not sure what to do. All they know is the specific tasks that the king gave them. So the kingdom kind of devolves, all right, from a peaceful, loving family to a group of machines unsure of where to go and kind of only live for one singular purpose, which would be to protect the king and therefore the kingdom. So they become very hostile towards outsiders. All right, all they know is that their king is a young child, and until he grows up, they won't progress. They have nothing to lead them, no one to tell them what to do next. So their one job, they determine, is to protect this child king at all costs. Since the king will never grow, this will be their life until their gears stop working or something changes. Okay, and at the end of ending A, you get the cutscene. Well, not the end of ending A, but during that section of ending A, you see what happens to their king. So you kind of know that everything is going to devolve from that point as well. Next we get, I don't know if this is in order. None of this might be in order, but I don't know. Let's talk about the amusement park next. You have the singing machine. Now, she is obsessed with beauty because in her mind, if she is beautiful enough, the other machine that she is targeting for affection will become smitten with her, okay? So she equates beauty with love and does everything in her power to become as beautiful superficially as she possibly can. Now, this leads to her doing a bunch of, crazy things. She goes dangerous places to get items, to obtain items that, in her mind, make her beautiful and more attractive, and therefore more desirable from the person she is in love with, essentially. She goes as far as eating androids, because somebody told her androids, eating them would make her beautiful. From androids, she goes to machines. So she is eating machines to become beautiful as well. At the very end, after we defeat her, it's kind of, she comes to the realization that she went about this all wrong. And that in her quest for beauty, she kind of lost herself and became a monster. All right. Now, this parallels with real life, and it's pretty interesting. And we'll probably get more into that kind of thing in a different video, because this is just my raw thoughts of where the story is going so far and kind of what's going on. But yeah, that parallels with real life. People can get lost in superficial things, thinking it's going to lead them to a place where it doesn't, and it never was going to. So that's very, very interesting. Alright, so then, 9S is in both the machine and then in the Yorha networks, okay? At different points of the story. So, he kind of learned some things about the machines in their network. A lot of it was the backstory of Adam and Eve and how, fighting is something they'll do, but really that's not what drives them. At least Eve. It doesn't drive Eve. Eve has one mission in life, just to be close with his brother. All right, and just to spend time doing whatever machine life form brothers do together. Okay, in their case, it was a lot of violence and fighting. But like Eve said, he didn't need any of that. He enjoyed it for what it was, but as long as Adam was there, that's all that mattered. Then 9S gets into the Yorha network, and that's where a lot of kind of cryptic messages and secret information starts to be divulged. Near the end of that section, 9S encounters a barrier that's an attack barrier. And he's surprised that there'd be an attack barrier in their server. What are you trying to hide? So after he gets through that barrier, he finds a file that is essentially stating that the Yorha developed the Council of Humanity. That Yorha was first, the Council of Humanity comes second. Which 9S was confused by, because he's like, this is backwards. This is not how this is supposed to be. So he's confused, all right? And we go on with that information. And 9S is picking up a lot of little pieces like this throughout this playthrough. He ignores a lot of it that has to do with the machines being more than just machines or human-like or having human qualities or, free will of any sort. He ignores a lot of that. But he's been picking up pieces all along the story. And then this leads to the big bombshell revelation of Ending B, which is that the humans do not exist on the moon. They were extinct well before the aliens even invaded Earth. And essentially what's on the moon is equipment just to send dummy messages to the Yorha on Earth. All right. We even see at one point that the shipments that are going up to the moon are mostly empty. They're mostly empty. There might be a little bit of water on board and other, small items like that, but it's not the supplies and the resources that a human colony of hundreds of thousands would need if there was one on the moon. So this opens up a ton of questions. A ton of questions. Everything in this basically leads to questions that we do not get the answers to throughout Ending B. Alright, that's why I said I cannot treat this as a full story, because it feels like we're still in the middle of it. Okay, we're getting close to the climax, right? And we haven't gotten to that point yet. With these new story elements that were introduced in this ending. It's hard to say that this, because I gave the story like a 6 or a 7 out of 10 for Ending A. And it's really hard to change that. It's hard to really even adjust it, or even say that it's still there, because, like I said, this is unfinished. We don't have the payoffs, and it depends. It depends on how they finish these stories, whether or not these storytelling elements are good or not. So with that said, where do I see this story going? And can they still make this one of the greatest stories in video gaming history? Well, I'm going to stick with my theory that the machines have made the androids. Like I said in Ending A's Raw Thoughts, was that we have seen the machines give birth, essentially, to an android-looking machine life form. And at that point, what's the difference? What is the difference? I have no idea. I don't think there really is one, even though 9S would not accept Adam and Eve, or Eve, I should say, Adam or Eve, as any sort of android being. So, we still have, the way this story is shaping up, we still have that the machines are creating the androids. The androids and the machines are fighting for whatever reason, okay? Now, the aliens are dead. Long gone. Dead and gone. The humans were never here, okay? So why were these androids created by the machines, and why are they fighting? I think the answer to those questions will go a long way in determining what type of story this is. But unfortunately, right now, we don't know, okay? I could say, maybe the machines, all right, after they came to Earth, didn't have anything to do on Earth because there's no one here, turned on the alien race that was their masters, killed them off, then they really were rudderless, just drifting, doing nothing on a planet of nothing, all right? But then they start maybe discovering, artifacts and information about humanity, and they start learning about the humans, and for some reason looked up to them. It's hard to make that leap, though. It is absolutely hard to make that leap because they're not really supposed to be thinking and feeling, even though we have seen evidence otherwise. But did they try to emulate humanity and figure that if they looked more like humans, it would, they could recreate this society on Earth? And then when they recreated themselves in the image of androids, then you have a group of androids. Was there some sort of revolt? Because now the machines don't look like the androids, and the androids definitely look like more advanced versions of these machines. So were the androids like, we're better than you, therefore we are going to snuff you out and take over everything? I don't know. I mean, that kind of seems where it's going. It kind of seems like that's the direction we're trending in. Does that make this the best story of all time by the time this ends? I mean, if it's an ending like that, it's hard for me to say that. It would be very hard for me to say that because I've seen it coming then. Because that means I've seen this coming since, like, ending A. God. It's just... Like I said, I want to love this story. So far, they haven't given me what I needed. I mean, it's a good story. It's a good story. It's a solid story. Like I said after Ending A. Good, solid story. A 6, 7 out of 10. Ending A was very run-of-the-mill, very mundane. We've seen that story over and over and over again. This is a slightly different take on that story. We get some, we get some very interesting revelations about what's happening. We don't get anything finished, though. It's not a finished story by any means. And even of the things that we've seen, it's not like we've necessarily haven't seen these story elements before either. And not to say that you can't take a bunch of storylines that have already been done before and put them together in a way that makes your story extremely compelling and places it above the rest, and to the point where it's revered as, one of the historical greats in its genre. But right now, through like 25-ish, 26 hours, 27, something like that, 25, 26 hours in the game, and getting this story fed to me, it hasn't gripped me like a story like The Last of Us, okay, or the Telltale Walking Dead, especially the first one. Like I said, that one was amazing, but it hasn't grabbed me like some of these other stories I've experienced in my lifetime have. Even a game like Spec Ops: The Line. It was a mundane story through the first half of it, but about halfway through, as they're telling you the story, you are picking up that things aren't as they seem. So even though they told like a mundane story through a big portion of the game, you could tell that this was going to be leading somewhere else. All right. And I just do not get these kind of feelings from this story so far. Will I in the next section? I don't know. I don't know. You know, and it's hard for me to believe that in the next, what, 2 to 3 hours, 4 hours tops, they're going to wrap up enough storytelling to elevate this story into the stratosphere that everyone else seems to be placing it. Maybe I'm not getting something. Maybe it's, you know, something I'm overlooking, and it's like hitting me right in the face, and everybody else gets that part, and I'm just not seeing it. Or I don't know. I mean, I don't know. Like, I came into this game excited for it and wanting to be told one of the best stories of video gaming history, and we're not there yet. We're not there yet. It's interesting. It's a good story. It's an interesting story. It's keeping me engaged. But I mean, these are just questions that I guess will have to be answered at the end of the next part. In my experience, there have been games where I've played it. I was enjoying myself, but not like in love with it. And then the ending happens, and after the ending happens, you look back, you know, and you see how everything is now connected through this ending, and how it changes context of events that you experienced earlier in the playthrough, and you're like, holy shit, you know? And the ending is what cements it as one of the best stories of all time. So we can still get to that point. Will this game, though? I mean, usually a game that did that to me had moments throughout it that were like, oh, yes, this is it. This is what we're doing. This game has not done that to me yet. Now, the you know, humanity isn't there or hasn't been here the entire time bomb. Yeah, that kind of did. I need the payoff to that, though. I need to figure out what's going on with that. Because they kind of just, like, drop that on you right near the end there. But depending on how they kind of tie this up, and I think A2 is going to be the key that connects both of these stories. I mean, obviously, she has to be, right? She seems to know a lot of things. She had some cryptic messaging for us in Ending A about the council. And I think she's going to help fill in the gaps and put a nice bow on both these stories. So, A2 is the key. Will A2 be enough to elevate this storyline as one of the best of all time? Or is this just going to end up, in my mind, in my eyes, as a solid, good video game story, but nothing to write home about? We'll have to see after the next part, so I'm going to get started on that. Hopefully you'll be around for the conclusion of this series, so after the next section, we're going to revisit everything, just the raw thoughts of that ending and how it ties up the story. And then, you know, we'll give it a little bit of time and then start really, like, breaking this game's story apart and seeing, you know, the deeper meanings and messages that maybe we miss on an initial playthrough, and just doing a raw thought reaction after the endings. So that'll do it, though. That'll be the video. Thanks for watching. Mawg Games is out. Peace.
They were a special class of members designed to execute Yorha units. But you knew that, right, Ninas?
Shut up! Shut up! What do you know? You don't know anything at all about us!
Proposal. Cease combat. Fighting her at this point would be
Pod
irrational.
153! I order you to halt all logical thought and speech. This order shall remain in effect until you confirm the death of either myself or Unit A2.
Alright, welcome back to Mawg Games. Now, today's video is my initial raw thoughts of ending C, D, and E of Nier Automata. Now, I have just finished the game. Literally 15 minutes ago, I finished the game, set everything up on the computer, and started recording this audio. Alright? This might end up being scatterbrained. It might end up being all over the place. I'm not sure. I'm going to try. Alright? I am still in a processing mode, honestly, for what I just witnessed. The end of this game gives you a lot, and especially with the multiple endings here. But we'll get into that. So, we're still processing a lot of information. There's a lot of thoughts going through my head. Trying to remember sequence of events, but it's all so fresh that it's honestly, it's a jumbled mess right now. It is a jumbled mess in my head, and I'm going to try to regurgitate my initial thoughts of the ending of this game and how it stacks up as a historical great, essentially. It's supposed to be one of the greatest stories ever told in video game history, and we'll get into all that. We're going to talk about the ending, kind of what happened, I guess, and we'll get into how this stacks up with some of the other great games with amazing storylines in the history of all of video games. With that said, it's a good game. It's a damn good game, and the ending is impressive. It's impressive. Jeez, okay? The absolute destruction of everything that we loved. It was impressive, I'm not gonna lie. It was impressive that they went that route with a lot of these places. You have the destruction of everything that you touched in the game. Anything that you went by and interacted with, like, essentially has been destroyed in one way, shape, or form by the end of the game. You had A2 is dead, 2B is dead, 9S is essentially dead, Pascal's village is destroyed, and he had his memory wiped, and he's now selling pieces of his dead children, you know? Like, that's scrap. Oh my god, like, that crushed me. That was the first thing that actually crushed me in this game. And, like, there's so many emotional moments, and you wanted to feel them. Some of them I don't think they pulled off. That moment when you go back to the village and Pascal's there, selling off the dismembered body parts of his village, his villagers and their children, as scrap metal and trash, because he doesn't remember, and he's doing it so cheerfully. Like, I don't know why they left all this garbage around. It's just like, oh my god, man. Absolutely crushing. Absolutely crushing. It's a damn good game. It's just a damn good game. I am not ready to say this is one of the best stories of all time, though. Because, now, this can change on a second playthrough, okay? Because on a second playthrough, now that you know the story, you will see things in a different light as you come across them. And it's going to be like little fireworks and light bulbs going off when I'm coming across this stuff. So, and I need time to actually, like I said, like 50, like at this point, what, maybe 25, 30 minutes ago, I ended that game. And it's still bouncing around in my head. It's all bouncing around in my head like a jumbled mess, and it's going to take some time. It's going to take some time for me to sort all this and to you know, how do I feel about it and what have you. So, unfortunately, I cannot give, like, this is the greatest story of all time. There's some problems with it. There is some problems. As good as this was, there's some problems with it, and we're going to get into that. Let's go over the endings really quick. Now, as we're playing through, we have 9S's descent into madness, okay? You see him just, you know, and it's frustrating because he was the character that had all the pieces to put the entire story together. He had all the pieces, and instead of following the breadcrumbs and figuring out the mystery, he goes off the deep end and totally abandons it. Doesn't give a fuck whoa, you know, what is going on anymore, and is just hell-bent on killing everyone and everything. Yeah, so it was frustrating. It was frustrating to watch, and that's not a bad thing. That's not a bad thing. For story-wise, like, it was frustrating because it's like you knew, like, you saw, like, he was getting all the pieces, and to me, he was going to figure it out. But then you see him starting his descent, and you realize, like, the further he goes down this descent into madness, the further away he's getting from the truth. And, like, at one point you realize it's just not going to get there. He's not going to make it there. He has too much momentum pulling him into his madness just to stop it from now. So, you know, you realize that even though he has all the pieces, he's not going to put together the story by the end. He's not going to figure it out. And that's exactly what happened. He was too hell-bent on destruction, and that's what he got. So, you know, you have 9S, and by the time it comes to that final battle between him and Nate 2, I wasn't feeling him anymore as a character. Like, to me, he was the bad guy at that point. He was the biggest villain in the game at that point of the story. But so let's just go over ending D. Alright, we're going to pause the video right there because there is something very important that we have to talk about before you get into the rest of the video. Now, in this video, you are going to constantly hear me refer to ending D, okay? Remember, this was right after I finished playing the game. Got the endings jumbled up a little bit. Every time I refer to ending D, I am referring to ending C. Not one point in this video do I specifically talk about ending D. When I talk about ending D, I am talking about it through the context of the lens of ending E, okay? So every time, and I'll label it going forward, but every time I say ending D, it's ending C. Back to the video. You know, maybe it's a little bit of the nihilist in me. I mean, I don't think so, but you know, to me, I don't expect every story that I view or read or, you know, participate in to have a happy ending. And I think too many films and games and books and stuff like that want to push those happy endings on you, whether they make sense or not. To me, the theme of this game and how all the pieces fell into place, and then how they all fell like dominoes near the end, I felt like ending D was actually more fitting. It was a more fitting end, because it's kind of in line with the entire theme of the game from the very beginning. You know, just all the destruction everywhere. Everything you touched is just ruined, destroyed, mutilated, deformed, whatever. You know, it's all been molested in some way. Games, books, movies, they don't have the balls to drop those endings on you very often. And when they do, if it makes sense in the story, I can appreciate it. Now, if it's coming out of left field just for the sake of wiping everybody out, like, yeah, you know, that doesn't work. The way I think they did ending D, I thought worked amazing. Now, I know technically ending E is the ending, okay? And it's a more hopeful ending where it's like, yes, everything's dead, but the Ark is actually sending the machine hive mind out in basically light form to travel the galaxy until it finds another planet to basically do this same thing again. I mean, they felt like it was like a happier, like, you know, hey, come with us kind of thing. But I feel like if they ever do find another planet, that it will devolve into the same thing by the, you know, after maybe thousands of years, who knows. But, you know, so the machine life forms are traveling the solar systems and the universe looking for another home. They might be out there in light form for thousands of years, and they may never find a home. you have A2 and 9S being rebuilt by their pods, who their pods have now gained a sentience and have basically split from the network after the bunker went down and decided to start calling their own shots. And it's the pods who are facilitating the rebuilding of 9S and A2, and they're going to try to essentially bring them back to life using their memories so they get another shot. Will it be exactly the 9S and the A2 that we have at the end of the game? No. But it's still close enough to those versions that we could feel good that, you know, they're getting a second chance here. You know, and it's... I just think that's a softening of the ending that was unnecessary. I don't know. I'm still like that. I'm still battling between these two endings. I really like D, but how you got E was very, very unique, and we got to talk about that real quick. The going through the ending credits, like you're hacking, and getting all the, you know, eventually getting the help from all the people who have played this part before, and getting the messages to either keep going or to, if you're going to quit. And every time you die, getting the, you know, morale boosting messages like keep going, don't quit, you're almost there, all that stuff. And then at the end, getting the option to sacrifice your save file was very, very unique. You know, you sacrifice your save file to help, to have your guy in there to help another person once they get to this point of the game. It's very unique. It's a very, very, very unique, and it's probably the most unique way to end a video game I've ever experienced. But yeah, I just felt like E took away from the ending of D, and I know that E and D are supposed to be two different things. I liked D better. And, you know, even though technically 9S, I guess, was going to get a second chance in D, I felt like he barely had a chance in D, whereas in E, I think him and A2 have a very good chance, and I don't think he deserves it. I think he is a flawed machine. Like they said, they knew they made him basically too smart, and 2B was not a battle unit, all right? Like they've been saying the whole time, she was an assassin unit, and her main job was to follow 9S around, and when he started poking his nose where it wasn't supposed to go, or he started going off the deep end, she was supposed to kill him before he destroyed everything, which is basically what we saw happen. 9S facilitated the destruction of everything we loved in this game by the end, and everything our enemies loved in this game by the end. So, you know, it's a good game. It's a damn good game. But like I said, there's problems. So we've gone over the endings. Let's talk about some of these problems, all right? Like I said, there's a lot of themes that this game touches on. The pursuit of beauty, okay? You touched on that. You touched on religion several times, on politics, on what happens when a group doesn't have a purpose, on how we had the aliens and, well, at first we thought it was the aliens and the humans both kind of fighting a proxy war, all right? And they each kind of seemed like they offloaded a bunch of their responsibilities onto these other entities. So they basically put the control of their livelihoods in the hands of androids and machines, kind of how we are doing right now with automated systems and AI, you know, and kind of how if you put too much in those baskets and you're reliant on them too much, if they collapse, that could be your undoing. That could be the end of your species. You have that aspect going on. You have, like I said, the religious zealots going on. You had the very basic revenge is bad theme and motif going on. So it touched a lot of these, and there's more. There's plenty of examples that I can't even think of, you know, right now off the top of my head. But there's all these little themes and motifs that the game touches on throughout the playthroughs. But I feel like if we were having a conversation with the game just brought up the topic and then moved on. Like, oh, so what do you think about, searching for love through beauty? Okay, and how do you feel about, thinking religion will make you godlike, or what have you? It's just like it brought up the topics, but we didn't dive any deeper. It was kind of a superficial, well, what about this? Well, what do you think of this? Well, look at this over here. And we didn't go deeper. And so while it brought up a bunch of interesting points, it never expounded on any of them, really. Besides, like, the revenge, because that was a huge theme of the end of the game, and you just saw the trail of destruction that it left behind. But all the other ones, it was pointing it out and giving you like a general, yeah, this is bad, right? But not like really exploring it any deeper than that. And so it gave a superficial feel to some of the themes it was trying to push through in its story. But it didn't take the time to explore any given one of them, other than a cursory, take a look over here and check this out. What do you think? This is bad, right? Yep, let's move on to the next thing. Now, like I said, I didn't do a ton of the side quests, alright? So maybe some of that is in those quests. I feel like the main story should do the deep dive, okay? And like the side quest stuff, if you're going to expound on the main storyline plot, it should be in an accentuating way, what's the word? Should be like an accent to the main story and not integral for you to understand it. So it should just be reinforcing points in side quests if you're tying the side quest stories to main storyline of the video game. That's just me though, hey. But, so some of this stuff might be buried in the side quests, and it'll answer some of my questions, or it'll dive deeper into some of these topics that it brought up but never went any further with. So that's like a big criticism of mine for the story of this game. Right now, while I'm processing, I could say it's a good game. It's a good story. It's a damn good story. It's a solid 8 out of 10 story. A 7.5, 8 out of 10. Right now, initially, just trying to piece together everything that I just witnessed over the last few hours playing this ending. But right now, I can't say that this is the best story ever of all time. This is or even belongs in that category. Like I said, probably because I'm still processing, and it might take a second playthrough to me to get all the nuance of the storylines in this game. And B, I feel like it was it was a bit superficial on some of the topics that it wanted to cover, and it felt like it wanted to get more profound, but was either didn't have the time to really take the deep dive, or was afraid to have to make too much commentary one way or the other and give up the kind of moral ambiguity of the topics. I don't know. So, that's a big reason right now. But, and the fact that I didn't get like what was going on 100%. I didn't like foresee everything, but I pretty much saw how this story was going through the first couple of playthroughs, and to the point where there was a lot of shocking stuff at the end of the game. But it was, again, superficially shocking, like the destruction of Bunker. That was a shock. The destruction of Pascal's village was a shock. But it had nothing to do with the main storylines necessarily. Like, the game didn't have to do those things, and it doesn't change. It changes things a little bit for the ending, but those were just kind of like outlier things, I feel like, that weren't tackling the main topics and the main questions, the main themes of the main plot of the video game. So, like all the major things, I kind of got the gist early on in the first playthrough of ending A. And I was in the ballpark. I was at least in the ballpark with what was going on from the very beginning. And to me, you had to subvert my expectations if you wanted this to be one of the greatest video games of all time. A perfect example of what I'm talking about with that is The Last of Us, okay? To me, one of the best stories in video gaming history, bar none. And it's all because of the ending, okay? I have never had a game give me the ending I want. All right, I wanted Joel and Ellie to be together at the end of the game. I wanted them to be safe. I didn't want Ellie to be sacrificed to the Fireflies for some bullshit experiment. And I get exactly what I wanted at the end of that game. But I have never had a game or a movie give me exactly the ending I wanted and made me feel so goddamn dirty about it. When she asked Ellie or Joel to tell her the truth and asked if he promised this is the truth, and and he lied to her.
No matter what, you keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
Like, my heart sank, and it's just like, no, Joel, not like that, not like this, don't do it like this. And that's how they do it, and that's how it ended. And I got the ending I wanted in a way that made me sick to my stomach. That's the ending we got, and to me that was fan freaking tastic. It subverted my expectations, okay? Because I saw where the story was going. I didn't know which way they were going to end it. They ended it the way I wanted, but it's like you get that gut punch and that knife twist at the end to be like, yeah, don't enjoy this too much, all right? So, this game didn't necessarily do that. Not in ways that were meaningful. Pascal's Village, like I said, was a shock that they went there and they did that, and yeah, you kind of saw it coming, like, as like that big battle was happening, but then to come back to the village and to see him like that was crazy. That was crazy. But if you don't have to go back to that village, and you don't ever have to see that, so that doesn't change the end of the game any. So it's like I said, I need a second playthrough of this. I need to actually process, okay? It's not really fair for me to grade a game after I'm still, like I said, this is fresh. This is going on 45 minutes, all right? The 30 or 50 minutes, like the 35 minutes I've been recording, and the 15 it took me to set everything up after beating the game. So, it's not fair while I'm still trying to process and everything's really fresh, and things that have happened earlier are kind of muddied and vague right now because the new stuff's in my head, and all these pieces are going to start coming together over the coming days and weeks, and I might have a different perspective after I actually have a chance to sit and really process and think about how everything unfolded in the game. And like I said, it might take a second playthrough even to find the nuance in the storyline and to notice the pieces falling together earlier in the story. I'm sure there's a lot of nuance and a lot of subtlety that was missed without knowing the storyline in the first playthrough. So after a second playthrough, after some time to process, I'm going to revisit this. I'm going to come back because, like I said, I wanted to love this game. I wanted this to be one of the best video games I've ever played in my life, storyline-wise. And it got up there, but I don't think it quite cracks that threshold. All right, it's good. It has me thinking. It has me, I enjoyed the experience. Absolutely 100% enjoyed it. But, I was judging this game against other games that I think have the best stories I've ever heard or seen or played in a video game or a movie or a book or what have you. And, you know, I feel like it did not live up to that expectation. So that's why, like I said, I love, or I wanted to love this game. I enjoyed it. And I think it's a good game. So I want to give it a chance to marinate and see if maybe I gain appreciation after a little bit of time. All right, so this won't be the last you see of Nier Automata on this channel. We will have a further, like maybe a deeper analysis video of the endings. We're kind of through the raw thoughts phase and into putting the pieces together and formulating, you know, profound theories on what happened. Once we get to that point, we're going to sit down, we're going to reevaluate everything, and I want to give this every chance possible to become one of the greatest video game stories of all time in the history of video games, like I was told it was going to be. But it's not there yet. Like I said, we'll give it a chance, we'll see if we can get it there, but right now it's not there. But it was damn good, and I enjoyed the hell out of it, and I'm going to play it a second time. It's a good enough game for a second playthrough. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and hopefully after a second playthrough, we'll understand it a lot better, and we will have a much different perspective on it. But only time will tell. You'll have to wait until we get that one out, and we get the time, we'll do it, and see where we're at. But that'll do it. Like I said, 8 out of 10. All right, it's a tier below the greatest stories of all time in video gaming history right now. To me, it is a tier below. It is in that good, not great category. So we'll see if that changes. But that'll do it. That'll be the video. Thanks for watching. Mawg Games is out. Peace.
You may not receive thanks for your efforts. Some may say that your efforts are purely for show.
Don't ask me
Do you
again.
still wish to help?
Oh, no. And
you are truly, truly
oh,
sure
fuck
about this?
you.
Very well. In exchange for all of your data, I will convey your will to this world.
Oh, that's fucking brutal. So, what the fuck? No! It's taken everything. Oh. Oh my god. It's going through one by fucking one and taking everything.